Hello everyone, welcome to What If Issei Was Betrayed by Girls and starts a music club movie. Before we start, please go support GautamaFanfic for writing that awesome fanfic. Now let's begin. This is the translated version I made. There will be some wrong he or she calling here because it's translated, so let me clear this. Issei is a male in this story. Chapter 1. The same routine like always. Hello, my name is Issei Hyodo, and I am the current secretary. Right now I am going straight to the occult club room for the sole reason that President Riaz called me. I don't know why, but I hope it is for something important and not something ridiculous. To be honest, my dream life with the girls is becoming a living hell. I can't stand them at all anymore. I thought that having a harem would make me happy, but I was wrong to a certain extent. The same, and the excess of love that they give me is something very harassing. I can hardly do things anymore because almost all the time one of them must be by my side almost by law. I can't stand it anymore. The idea of having a harem is gone thanks to them, thinking that every day would be like this when I marry them. Holy shit, what a bucking pain in the ass. Sad and sorry. Continuing with my story, I left the idea of forming a harem behind for a while now. I've been thinking about telling them that we should end this relationship and break my engagement with Riaz. I want time for myself now. I know that sounds very selfish on my part, yes, but I have to put a stop to this to the point that my perversion disappeared completely. My desire to touch huge breasts went out. Although these last 3 months have taken them away from me, and I don't know about you, but I appreciate that. Taking a break from them and from that program they created for me in the underworld is more than satisfying. Thanks to that I took up some forgotten hobbies like being a DJ or composing music. As a child I liked to do that, but I had left it. Wow, what a great time I had to rest, but as I said at the beginning, I have to go back to the same old routine. Issei was about to reach the club room. He was only a few steps away from being in front of the door. Once he was at the door, he took a deep breath and then let it out in a sigh and entered the club, but he didn't expect to see the following. Since in the previous life as Vali he was kissing Riaz while caring for Akeno's breasts, Kiba took turns kissing Zenobia and Rasuis, Saji was also there caring for Irina's breasts, while Leisha kissed him on the neck with a touch of lust, and finally seeing how surprisingly Gasper was kissing Kaneko while massaging the albino's butt. The brown-haired boy had no words for what he was seeing. He didn't know what to feel or what to say. He didn't feel sad or betrayed. In fact, he didn't feel any negative emotion about it. Since the love he felt for them had been gone for some time now, the only thing he could feel was shock. Everything was silent until a certain Albion smelled him, stopping kissing the vampire and focusing on the brunette who kept her phone while he sat down in a nearby chair. Kaneko called the attention of the other girls while indicating the arrival of Issei. Seeing that, they put on a face that would be richer, who was going to sit at her desk while the other girls were going to stand behind them, while the boys sat right next to the brown-haired boy with a face of superiority. The silence continued in that place, nobody said anything, and the brown-haired boy was already starting to get desperate to know why the hell they had summoned him to the club until finally someone spoke, this being the red-haired girl. Issei Hyodo, I'm going to get straight to the point. The reason you were summoned here was to tell you that from today you are expelled from my peerage. At that moment, Issei, upon hearing that, was again surprised, since he did not expect that they would make that decision and do that to him, but seeing how his loved ones were kissing his friends, he quickly deduced the reason why this decision was made. The brown-haired boy did not say anything, his face of surprise changed to one of calm, confusing everyone present, since they were expecting a different reaction to this one. Riaz, seeing that there was no reaction, decided to confront him. That? You're not going to say anything? The redhead asked, a little annoyed. Ugh. What do you want me to say? Or how do you want me to react? With pain and sadness? Starts to act just because they do this to me doesn't mean I love you, everything I did for you was with all my love. Please laugh, it's been a long time since I stopped loving you, this doesn't affect me at all. If you're going to expel me from your environment, it's fine, it's your decision. I can already imagine the reason why you're doing it, seeing that they're here, points to the 4 boys, so let's finish this quickly, Issei said in a disinterested tone. The girls, upon hearing that, were surprised by the brown-haired boy's statement, and deep inside it hurt them that he told them that, but they did not show it, since their faces showed anger, a great anger directed towards Issei who looked at them with disinterest. So Issei-kun no longer loved us, good thing we have better people than him, right girls? Akeno said with her same tone as always, a tone that already bothered the brown-haired boy. The rest of the girls affirmed the black-haired girl's statement. Issei only sighed from exhaustion while he was silent, looking at everyone with indifference. Riaz got up from her seat, ready to go to the brown-haired boy and stand face to face. Issei just stared at the redhead while she looked at him angrily. That conversation had been short but direct. More words were not necessary to say what was going to happen. Being already in front of the brown-haired boy, he took out Issei's pawns, leaving 8 huge holes in her body. Issei endured the pain as best as possible while standing and holding the gaze of the red-haired girl, who continued to look at him now with annoyance. Asia, heal him for the last time, the Gremory ordered, receiving a nod from Asia. Thank you, Issei. We are going to give you the pleasure of being healed for the last time, said Riaz in a superior tone. But the brown-haired boy, seeing how Asia approached and noticing Ria's tone of voice, said in a firm tone. No thanks, I'm fine like this, you don't need to cure me, I've suffered worse things thanks to you. The girls were outraged to hear that, they couldn't believe that the brown-haired boy had rejected such a great help according to them, but they didn't say anything, since they considered it unnecessary to waste their saliva on him, while they could use it for something better. Well Hyodo, this is goodbye, said Riaz. I hope we don't see each other again, it was a pleasure having you as a puppet for my purpose, finished saying Riaz while she turned around addressing the silver-haired man, who was already beginning to warm up next to the fallen half, and the rest of the girls in the same way with their respective boyfriends. The chestnut, seeing that better, began to withdraw from there, with a firm step, and without looking back he walked towards the door, where about to open it to leave he looked inside for the last time and said. Goodbye girls, I hope I never have to spend time with you again, I can't tell you why you see it as a reward. The brown-haired boy then quickly closed the door while laughing his head off. Those inside, upon hearing those words, got angry with the brown-haired boy, but quickly ignored that, to continue with their acts of lust, which after a while they had reached another level, starting to have sex in the same room. While the chestnut was already outside the abandoned building where the occult club was located. You could only hear the slight laughter he gave at the previous joke he told, but from one moment to the next, he collapsed to the floor holding on to some parts where the pawns were. Arg, how it hurts, how it hurts, how it hurts, I thought it wasn't going to hurt so much, that mother, there, my body. The brown-haired boy mentally complained while a certain green sphere appeared in the brown-haired boy's left hand. Wow mate, your endurance is surprising, I expected no less than my carrier these last few weeks, you've become strong, said Drake in an impressed tone, but in the end, he finished with a proud tone. Thanks, buddy, but leave that aside. How long will it take me to heal? Issei asked how he got up from the ground without so much pain. Since you are no longer a demon and your dragon part took the place of your demonic part, I would say an hour, Drake answered thoughtfully. Well, time to wait for it to heal, we have to go home to continue with our routine, Issei said in a determined tone as he began to walk, ignoring the pain that still predominated. Buddy, you better rest, better leave it for tomorrow, said Drake in a worried tone. There is no tomorrow, Issei answered as he summarized his walk since he had stopped to listen to his partner. Issei knew perfectly well that this would not break him down, he would no longer shed his tears for girls he does not love, he would continue forward fulfilling objectives that he left forgotten just for having been with them. Well, Drake, upon hearing those words, just smiled sideways inside the booster gear, and one thing came to his mind. Hey buddy, you've matured in such a short time, your life is going to change from now on, the only thing I can say is that I'm proud of you, we've made a lot of progress in these 3 months. The brown-haired boy continued walking towards his house, while he did that he thought about what he should do, since he is not a demon, and he would have more time. When he got home and thought a lot about what he could do, he had already made a decision, one that in the eyes of the world would have a great change, and it was only a matter of starting tomorrow, but for now he would continue his routine today. The next morning. The chestnut tree got up early as he had become his custom, it was 5:30 in the morning, the time when he began his routine he acquired these last 3 months. The routine consists of jogging for an hour, half an hour of military-type exercises, arriving home at 6:15, and during those 30 minutes, he had breakfast, showered and changed to go to the academy, arriving about 20 minutes before classes started. In that short period of time he was thinking about new sounds that he could use to make a good funk, dubstep or electronica. His companions were no longer surprised to see that the brown-haired boy was there early. At first they were impressed to see him there early, but as time went by they began to get used to it. Classes began normally, the brown-haired boy sometimes felt like he was being looked at with hatred and annoyance, he didn't care, since he could already deduce who was looking at him like that, so he didn't give it much importance. The first day of classes came to an end, giving way to the first hour of rest. Issei got up from his desk ready to go to the student council to ask for permission to open a club, one of which he had thought about opening after a long time. It only took a few minutes to get to the door of that room, the confidence they had before was slowly fading and changing into nerves, but they quickly cleared them so that it would consume him again until he was finally in front of the door. Taking a deep breath, he knocked on the council door. It only took a couple of seconds for them to answer, giving the brown-haired boy the go-ahead. As I entered I could see the same old scene, all the girls from the student council were doing the usual thing, reviewing papers and such. Everything was normal at first glance, but at the sight of the chestnut came the image of 2 girls who were sad for some strange reason, being these. Hi Panaki. Baruko Nomura. When I noticed this, I felt sorry for them since I knew that both were in love with Saji, and from those expressions I knew that both girls knew about the relationship between the blonde and Irina and Asia. But he quickly downplayed this, he came for one thing, and that was to ask for a specific club, so the brown-haired boy greeted Sona who, still keeping her eyes on the paperwork, responded to her greeting from her. They were all focused on their affairs without seeing how the brunette currently looked since they hadn't seen him in a while. Everything had gone silent again until Issei spoke again. President Sona, I want to ask for permission to open the music club, said the brown-haired boy with a somewhat nervous tone. Those words had caught the attention of everyone present, finally staring at him, surprised to see the appearance of this. Before her eyes was the image of the well-groomed brown-haired man with black glasses on, she could also notice how his clothes stuck to his body, revealing that his body was worked out. Each of them had a blush on their face, even the ever-cold Sona Citri, who shook her thoughts aside. Well, Hyodo-kun, do you want to open a club? Weren't you with Rias in the occult club? Sona asked in a curious tone while watching how relaxed Issei was. Well, about that, there was a situation there, and he kicked me out of his entourage. I don't want to give too many details, since he's going to find out anyway. Those words took everyone present out of their fantasy world, leaving them surprised to hear such unexpected news. Are you serious about what you're telling me? Sona said in surprise while the brown-haired boy agreed. How is that possible? Why would they do that to you? She asked a black-haired boy in the same initial tone. Well, I don't know, I honestly don't want to say anything about that, this is a matter between them and me, but leaving that aside, are you going to give me permission to open the music club? Issei said in a slightly desperate tone. Sigh's okay, I'm not going to force you to say, but well, first of all, do you know how to play an instrument or at least know how to make music or know something about that? If you're going to open a club on your own, you should know that it's a big responsibility and you have to do things related to it, because if you do things that aren't about that, the club will close immediately, said Sona in a serious tone. While waiting for the brown-haired boy's answer, all the girls also paid attention since this was a topic of interest. Answering all that, that's right, I know what that details and how to do it, don't worry, if you want I'll show you one of my creations, said Issei in a confident tone, thus demonstrating his firmness, while he took his phone out of his bag and searched for something in it. All of this in full view of everyone present, since how was it possible that the perverted beast would carry out an activity apart from his perversions, but now they would see what the brown-haired boy is made of, or rather what he is capable of creating with music. Let's see which of these two I put, thinks okay, I think you like this one. The brown-haired boy said while playing a song directly from his phone. Song name Dimension by Creo. The girls, after finishing listening to that song, were very impressed to hear such a good melody. That was more than enough for Sona, she still had her doubts about her, and just in case she would look for the song on YouTube, in case the brown-haired boy lied, but for the moment she would give the brown-haired boy authorization to open the music club. Okay Hyodo-kun, you will be given permission to open the music club, please bring these documents to make the opening of the club official, said Sona in a firm tone, while the girls had nothing to say, since that song was really good. While the brown-haired boy only affirmed and then began to fill out the documents given by Sona, within a few minutes Issei had already finished. Before leaving, he had thanked Sona, who had replied that there was no problem. When the brown-haired boy left, the girls began to talk among themselves, commenting on things about the brown-haired boy, except for Sona, who returned to work while debating what had happened to Issei. Meanwhile, the brown-haired boy walked happily through the school halls while mentally celebrating. Yes, I was able to open the music club, what a blessing, I will finally be able to dedicate my time to what I like, I hope it goes well for me. Episode 2. The young brown-haired boy was happy, for the simple reason that his request had been accepted by the student council. This was Issei who was heading to his new club to see what state it was in. It only took him a couple of minutes to reach the door of the club, where without hesitation, he opened the door with a key given by the student council. When he opened the door he noticed that the space was big enough to fit his equipment which was at home, a fine layer of dust was there, a symbol that the room had not been occupied in a long time. The brown-haired boy, seeing that, set to work to start cleaning the place. Time had flown by, and the room was now clean. In fact, Issei was physically trained, he had taken off his shirt showing his abs which were well formed. The club hour was ending, and all those who had stayed were slowly leaving, the protagonist was also leaving with a single thought. How do I get my sound equipment to the club? I think I'll have to buy another vehicle. The brown-haired boy thought as he stood at the door of his house and entered normally. The house felt lonely since his parents had gone on a trip thanks to some tickets they had supposedly won. It was still early for the brown-haired boy, and as he was still in the heat of physical training, he started training again, but this time with his sacred gear. After finishing his training he headed to his room where his DJ equipment was, but today he would not do anything about his music. He had gone straight to bed where as he laid down, a thought came to him. How have I changed in such a short time? And indeed the chestnut tree changed in no time at all, since in 3 months its life took a 360-degree turn. The chestnut tree suddenly began to remember everything that had happened in this period of time. As was the excess of affection and love that the girls gave him to the point that he no longer wanted anything and would stop being perverted as the girls from one day to the next moved away from him, this being taken advantage of by the brown-haired boy to do things that he had left behind, how he had decided to take training seriously and become stronger. How he would change his way of dressing to a more groomed one, how he would also start to wear glasses because he had his eyes on the screen for a long time because he was editing his songs. These changes that did not affect his life but improved it, his reputation at the academy was changing, since his sudden change had taken his classmates by surprise, which at first did not take it well, since they thought it was a plan to do something perverted in the future, but no, they had realized that the brown-haired boy had already left behind, so they began to treat him differently. Also, how he bought a certain thing that he wanted when he was little, and that now that he is older he was able to get it, and soon he would have another one due to the need to transport his equipment. All this thanks to the fact that he set out to achieve his goals that he had left aside because of girls and perversion, leading him to an abnormal life to which he was originally destined. But those thoughts in his mind he fell asleep late since it was 2 a.m. in the morning. Luckily for Issei tomorrow was Saturday, a perfect day to go buy what he had planned for his vehicle, and also to pay a visit to a certain Mausiskin. A new day arrived at Kuo, and with it the awakening of the chestnut tree which gets up a little late not doing its routine today. His morning began with a normal breakfast. When he had breakfast the chestnut began to think of random things, or out of nowhere he began to bring up radon topics where from one point he went to another. After finishing his breakfast, the brown-haired boy went to wash the dishes he had used and then he went to take a good bath and then got changed. Issei finished changing by putting on a black leather jacket, pants of the same color, and shoes of the same color. He goes down the stairs of his house heading towards the front yard where he could see something that was covered, and without saying anything he approached that object to later uncover it, revealing a super sports motorcycle. This was the Ducati Panigale V4 SP, a great acquisition for the chestnut that had cost him a lot of money, but that was nothing now since he had plenty. Letting out a big sigh, the brown-haired boy got into his vehicle, then started it up and began his trip to Tokyo, where he would go to buy a new vehicle to take his DJ stuff to his club. The trip was long but very relaxing for the brown-haired boy. He never got tired of riding his motorcycle that he had acquired just a month ago. Issei arrived in the city of Tokyo, leaving his motorcycle parked in an alley where from there with a magic circle with the symbol of the Sekiryuite he appeared under the motorcycle, where in a few moments it disappeared. Issei walked through the streets looking for a car dealership. After walking for a while the brown-haired boy came across a Chevrolet dealership which he decided to enter. Some time later, the brown-haired boy had finally bought a vehicle which was a red Colorado pickup. The brown-haired man had paid the cash price, surprising the seller, but leaving aside the return trip was relaxing, although it was not comparable to the experience of riding a motorcycle, but it was more or less the same feeling. The afternoon had arrived, and with it the chestnut arrived at his house, where there were 2 presences that he had already identified. He calmly parked his truck and then slowly got out of it and then walked towards the door of his house. He calmly entered his house heading to the living room where upon arriving, a red-haired man, a little pensive and a silver-haired woman with her same expression as always, but her aura said something different, both were in the living room. Surzicha seeing Issei got up from where he was sitting to see Issei with a sad look, while the brown-haired boy had a neutral face. "Hello Issei-kun, how are you?" The red-haired boy welcomed. "Hello Surzicha-san, I'm fine," the brown-haired boy replied. "Are you sure? We found out what the girls did to you and well," said the red-haired man without being able to finish the sentence, but the brown-haired man deduced what the Mao wanted to say. "They thought that I would find it bad, right? Surzichas, I stopped loving them a long time ago. If I was in your sister's clan it was out of obligation," said the brown-haired boy surprising his visitors who had no words. "But Issei-kun, weren't you supposed to have a big harem? I mean, you already had beautiful women by your side," said the red-haired man in a mood. "Sighs Urzichas, that stupid dream is now in the past. I had that dream when I was an uncontrolled pubescent. I didn't know what I was asking for until I got it. I didn't like this excess. I could hardly do anything because one or the other was behind me without letting me do anything. I asked myself, is this life that I am living the one I want to live? Without more I could not stand it and I stopped loving them. Over time that love changed to disinterest, and leaving those feelings aside, I focused on what I wanted to do since from one day to the next, so to speak, they left me," told the brown-haired boy in a neutral tone, which impressed him. The same thing happened with his wife. They would never have believed that the brown-haired boy thought that way. There was no doubt that Issei was full of surprises. Wow, I didn't know that was your thought, you impress me, so. No hard feelings. No hard feelings. Both men shook hands while Issei offered both demons something to drink. Having already ordered, Issei went to the kitchen where after a while, he came out for what he ordered. And so they began to talk. Surziches had told him how he had found out about this matter, since Riaz and her entourage had gone to the underworld to tell their parents about their current relationship and how they left Issei. But the red-haired man said, slightly surprised, Issei, something he didn't show. After that and a long time of talking, Surziches and Gryphia said goodbye to Issei. Before they left, the brown-haired boy stopped Surziches with a simple question. Before you go, is my engagement with Riaz still standing? That's right, Issei-kun, do you want me to break the engagement? The red-haired man asked in a friendly tone. Indeed, if it is possible to do it as soon as possible, the better, Issei replied in a calm tone. Okay, Issei-kun, I'll take care of that. About to leave, one last thing, could you go talk to my parents please, said the Crimson Mao. Don't worry, Surziches, in fact I wanted to go see them to talk to them, the brown-haired boy replied. Thank you, Issei-kun, take care. Goodbye. Surziches said goodbye, as did Gryphia, who only raised her hand in farewell. The chestnut's house was left alone again. It was already a little late, and because he didn't want to cook, he decided to order a pizza. After placing his order from him, the chestnut went to his room from him where his audio equipment from him was, thus beginning to work on one of his songs from him, which took him a couple of hours, during which time his food from him had arrived. It was almost 11 o'clock at night, and Brown had finished his new song, giving a sigh of tiredness and being in his underwear and a white t-shirt, Brown played his song to hear how it had turned out. Name: Immunity by Dex Arson. After checking it out, the brown-haired boy was going to bed early since he was kind of tired, and just like that he went to sleep. In another place we can see how the Gremorys were having hex with the boys as usual, each one united in their world of lust, just like the boys who only enjoyed the sensation that was offered by putting their member in the girl's intimacy. It was a new day. The brown-haired boy got up again at 5:30 in the morning, continuing with his routine. The whole morning was normal. Even in the afternoon the brown-haired boy started exercising, until it was 4 p.m. At that time the chestnut stopped exercising and then took a break. After a few long minutes the chestnut went into a bath. While later Issei was about to disconnect his audio and sound equipment from him to load it into his truck from him, which had taken him a long time. The sun was setting and the moon was rising. Our protagonist was on the roof of his house meditating. The brown-haired boy's power was slowly increasing without him realizing it. A pair of Emperor Red Dragon wings also came out of Issei's back. The brown-haired boy was like that for a while until he stopped meditating. He slowly opened his eyes, showing that his pupils were green with reptilian sclera, but those eyes disappeared, leaving in their place Issei's classic honey-colored eyes. You've made great progress, my friend. You almost have 100% of my power, the dragon commented in a proud tone, which made the brown-haired boy laugh. Laughs. Thanks mate, it took 3.5 months of effort, very little time from my perspective, said the brown-haired boy in a calm tone that was almost mocking. Well, that's thanks to you, you've taken the training seriously, and you've pushed yourself to the point that you got used to it, that's a bit to admire, since you focus on a goal, said Drake. That's true, but well, I'm going to sleep now, tomorrow is a new day, and I have to take my equipment to the club, said Issei, and then he came down from the roof with a couple of acrobatics, getting into his room through the window and falling right into his bed, where after a couple of minutes he fell asleep. Another day arrived at Kuo. Each person began their daily routine, adults to their jobs and young people to their schools. Boys and girls in the Kuo Academy uniform headed to their institution, some arrived in groups and others alone. Everyone was going in their own world until a red truck caught their attention as it was heading in the same direction as them. So impressed by that car they quickened their pace to see whose truck it was. The crowd of students began to accumulate, being noticed by the student council, which went out to impose order. A few minutes after the van parked near the entrance of the academy, a well-known brown-haired boy got out of the vehicle, leaving everyone speechless. And so if it were a movie, everyone began to watch in slow motion how the brown-haired man closed the car door and with keys in hand, activated the lock with the control system that had the keys. That scene had also surprised those of the student council, who were staring at Issei. The brown-haired boy, feeling an extra sensation, looked around and noticed that he was the center of attention, which made him slightly nervous, but that nervousness disappeared when he saw Sona, who, coming out of shock, looked curiously at the brown-haired boy who was heading towards her. Hello, President Sona, good morning, the brown-haired man greeted cordially. Hello Hyodo-kun, could you explain to me why all this fuss so early? Asked the black-haired girl. I'm sorry, I honestly don't know why this fuss, I just arrived and everything was already like this, Issei responded in a confused tone, but a pink-haired girl along with her brown-haired friend entered the scene with a simple question. "Hayato-san, whose car is that? And why are you bringing it?" Both women shouted. "Huh? This car," points to the truck, "is mine, and what I have in the back is something confidential," the brown-haired boy responded in a friendly tone, leaving everyone frozen. "Although speaking of that, President Sona, I would like to make a request, but I would tell you that at break time," said Issei in a friendly tone. "Of course Hayato-kun, I'll wait for you at the council," answered Sona, coming out of her shock as she watched Issei give a smile, then take off his glasses to clean them as he began to continue on his way in full view of everyone, while Sona's mind began to stir as a feeling slowly began to emerge. And so that morning began in an irregular manner, thanks to a certain chestnut tree that left everyone speechless and caused the curiosity of a certain perverted chestnut tree to flare up, which would begin to watch him without him realizing it. Chapter 3. Of Time. A very boring morning, wherever I look it's the same old thing, students from my institute heading to the same school. Nothing was interesting since Issei stopped being perverted. Normally in the mornings there was already a bit of action, thanks to the perverted trio now duo who were now receiving the beatings from the kendo club. Now that I think about it, Issei has changed a lot since 3 months ago, such a sudden change that shocked the entire school. How was it possible that the perverted beast changed from one day to the next? The facts proved it themselves, the change he had was for the better, his reputation as a pervert had changed to that of a quiet, studious, four-eyed boy. Honestly, I didn't pay attention to it, although. I would like to investigate a little about his life, but not now, I don't feel like it. I continued walking to the Kuo Academy until I noticed that everyone was crowded and with their mouths open. The only thing I could see was how the man I was thinking of was leaving the place. Seeing the whole panorama, I saw a red truck which caught my attention, and with curiosity, I asked the closest person what I had, and I had asked him whose car it was, which he answered. "It's from Hayato-san." Huh? It really was him. I honestly didn't believe it right away, so I consulted with more people all saying the same thing. I could use this as a pretext to see what was happening in Issei's life, and also for my website, since I've been very inactive, since most of my blogs were about Issei and his misdeeds as the perverted beast, although I also posted about some relevant news, but what I had the most visits were the news related to the brown-haired boy. Knowing that the truck belonged to the chestnut tree, I decided to find out why he had it, so as a first step today I would be watching him without him realizing it. Then POV. The morning had passed very calmly after the scene made by the brown-haired boy. The classes had been taken normally until the first break. The brown-haired boy walked through the school halls, heading towards the student council with only one objective, which was very simple from his point of view, but he still asked for permission to avoid getting into trouble. Already in front of the door, he knocked 3 times waiting for the signal to come in, which was not long in coming, and with that the brown-haired boy entered, seeing that only Sona was there doing her usual activities. The brown-haired boy, seeing that, approached the desk, placing himself in front of the desk where Citri slowly raised his eyes to see the brown-haired boy. "Hello Sona-san," greeted the brown-haired girl, who responded in kind. "Hello Hayato-kun, I see that you sold." "Of course I was going to come, remember I told you, but well, the reason I came is to ask for permission to put my truck in the school parking lot, since I brought a couple of things for my club," said Issei, going straight to the point. What Sona was thinking about that request. "Think you are allowed to enter your vehicle, just with caution, since that area is busy and we don't want any accidents, would that be all?" said Sona in a professional tone while the last question was asked in a curious tone. "That's right, Sona-san, that would be all. Well, until next time," said Issei in a calm tone as he began to say goodbye to the girl, who in the same way did it alone to then return to her work. The break ended and with it the classes started again. The brown-haired boy was already in his classroom, waiting for the class to start. As always, 3 looks of hatred and anger were at his side, but as always he ignored them. The dazed chestnut focused on his studies of him and dedicated himself to what he liked, which had changed him a lot. Classes were back to normal, and with that came the second break where Issei took advantage of the time to eat well and think of some rhythms for his songs. While from a distance Aika watched him cautiously while writing down some things in her notebook while taking a sip of a drink she had nearby. Finishing the break, Issei went back to class where everything was normal again, except that Issei still didn't notice the brunette who was watching him. When classes were over and club time began, the brown-haired boy left the institute and headed to his car, where he got into it to start it and very carefully entered the school. While from a distance Kiryu looked at him with curiosity and then began recording a video with his cell phone of him, one that seemed like it was live. "Hello good, this is your friend Aika reporting with a new note. I am currently watching Issei Hayato, that young man who changed from one day to the next, but leaving that aside, we are seeing how he is entering the academy with a van, that apparently it belongs to him. He has many things in the back and is he approaching the music club?" Aika said while recording all the actions of the brown-haired boy, but the most curious thing about all this was how in the back of the van he had many things. This was in full view of the entire school, who watched the broadcast with curiosity. Suddenly, they saw Issei uncover the things he had behind him, revealing a lot of audio equipment, which he slowly began to load and take to the club. As time passed, the brunette continued recording but was already a little tired, since the brunette only went around and around until from one moment to another, after having finished taking down all his things in full view of everyone who was watching that live broadcast, the brunette took off a loose shirt that he had revealing his abs. The girls who saw this were left open-mouthed while their noses were bleeding, and some of them wet their panties from seeing such a well-formed body. The boys, upon seeing them, were just in shock since they would never have imagined that the brown-haired boy was like that. It should be noted that the Gremorys and the Citri did not see that transmission, since some were busy with manual work and the others were doing routine paperwork. Aika, seeing that she didn't know what to do, whether to continue broadcasting that live show or cut it there, and without knowing what to do better, she published a survey where she asked her viewers if they should continue recording or not. The voting was done quickly, and the majority of votes were put in to continue recording, being mostly votes from all the women of the academy. Few men were those who wanted to know more, so with that answer Aika continued recording, but this time she got closer, since the brown-haired boy in that short period of time had parked his vehicle well and was entering his club, where he began to arrange everything. POV Issei. Phew, it did take me a long time to unload all my equipment. I have to admit that it's a lot, but it's what's necessary to do magic. He and I brought some very interesting things, but now I'm not going to focus on that, but on finishing arranging everything today, even if that takes me a little more time. Anyway, today there's no one at home. My parents are traveling, thanks to whom I bought them other tickets so they could tour the world again. That Op-Eyed Dragon program really left me with a lot, although it is very humiliating now that I think about it better. I understand the state of drag. Something deep inside me is very disappointed in myself. It is as if a past me told me something, but I do not know what that feeling is. For now I am going to rest since I finally finished arranging everything. It is already late and I still have to eat something. Maybe I will order one when I get home. Then POV. Aika had already left the place a few moments before, almost at the limit of the end of the clubs, since it was already too late for her, and she had to get home, so as not to worry her parents. Meanwhile Issei left that place in his car, but not before stopping at a store where he would buy a couple of things to eat and spend time watching TV at home. Already at home, the brown-haired boy decided to watch TV and did his job, but when he watched television, he focused more specifically on the music section. Most of the music had collaborations and electronic music with some parts where a girl sang to give emotion to the song. And upon hearing that, Issei had the great idea of collaborating with some of his classmates, but this idea faded away since he didn't know for sure if his classmates still saw him as a pervert. Since he changed and showed that change, everyone around him treated him neutrally, but that doesn't mean they will get along. But what he didn't know was that everyone in the academy would now focus their attention on him, thanks to Aika's transmission. He also thought of adding a member to his club to help give his voice sometimes much better if it were a girl, since he had many ideas for that type of songs, but like the other thought Issei cut this idea because he didn't know how everyone saw him in the academy. But leaving that aside, the brown-haired boy turned off the TV to go to his room where he would quickly go to sleep. The next morning. Again, as usual for the chestnut, he carried out his daily routine, with the only exception that today to go to the academy this time he would go on his sports bike, asking to leave a little later, since going by bike was a little faster than going by car or walking. When he arrived at the academy again, he left everyone speechless as they quickly identified the brown-haired boy, since he was not wearing his helmet, something that Issei completely ignored as he was deep in thought. While he was heading to his living room, he noticed how the women blushed slightly when they saw him, confusing the brown-haired man who also ignored those expressions. When he arrived at his classroom, everyone present turned to look at him, some with suspicion and others with indescribable expressions. That day had been strange for the brown-haired boy. The classes that the teacher taught were the same, but his classmates were not, since he felt watched by them at all times. Nobody said anything, since they did not know how to express themselves or ask any questions. But Laika was receiving messages like, "Are you going to do another live about Hyodo? Are you going to film Issei again?" The brunette saw that and several other questions on her phone, and seeing that the spectators' companions wanted to see about Issei, she didn't grumble anything and proposed to record the brunette again. Time skip. It was already time for the clubs, and with it Aika Asia's surveillance of Issei's person began with .o. Always when she started recording she started with her presentations. "Hello, good morning, this is your friend Aika reporting for the second day of watching Hyodo. This morning she came with a super sport bike, which impressed everyone since first I saw her at school with a truck and now with a bike. Well, what secrets is she hiding? Said Aika as she approached the window of the music club to see what was happening inside. With Issei. Once he was in his club he quickly got down to work to start with something he had in mind, and this was a new song of the funk genre. It had occurred to him out of nowhere while he was listening to some of his creation songs. Being a little in a hurry he had not noticed the presence of Aika, who was looking at him with curiosity. But before that, Aika had seen the brown-haired boy's audio equipment. Although she had already commented on it in the last live broadcast, she was still surprised that Issei was a DJ, and seeing how he moved from one side to the other and began to make some sounds with the instruments he had in that place, she no longer had any doubt that Issei was a DJ. Time passed and everyone who watched Aika's live performance began to get bored until a few words from the brown-haired boy caught his attention, since after a while of being on the computer, Issei got up from his seat to connect a series of devices so that after a couple of configurations, a melody would begin to be heard. Sea of Problems by Gremory. Issei felt proud of what he had created, a relaxing but at the same time moving song, an hour of art that he kept to himself, since he does not publish his songs by him anywhere. But what the brown-haired boy did and know or ignored was the fact that everyone at school had heard his song from him and they had been surprised by that melody that lifted some of their spirits from him. Aika finished the live show since the club hour was over and it was time to leave there, but with one thought in mind. What are you hiding, Issei? Why this change? Since when do you do these types of activities? Meanwhile, the brown-haired boy was talking to his partner mentally while he packed his things to leave and eat something, while in the student council all those present felt strange. Reason? One of the girls from the student council had turned on her phone to watch Aika's live broadcast of her. This was Tomo Meguri, who was listening to her classmates chatting and hearing something that had caught her attention. Well, they were talking about Issei Hyodo and about his body that in their words was carved by the gods, and then one of them took out his phone and quickly forwarded to the part where the brunette took off his shirt showing his six-pack, making the group of friends sigh. And Tomo, seeing that out of the corner of her eye, blushed heavily so that it would be noticed by the group of friends, who upon seeing that began to tell Tomo, who only blushed more when she heard the things the girl said. They had suggested that she watch the next live broadcast that Aika would broadcast today, since they would record the brown-haired boy again and hopefully be able to see his body. And after that suggestion, Tomo put on Aika's live show just out of curiosity, whereas time went by, the part came where Issei listened to his new creation at full volume in his club. The song had been heard loudly, and with it caught the attention of the girls present there, including Queen and King Citri. Where after finishing listening they were left with a strange feeling, one that caused them excitement and relaxation. With it the activities of the student council were calmer than usual. Chapter 4. The chestnut was resting while listening to his most recent song by him again. He had liked it so much that he had left it on repeat so he could enjoy his song more. The work had been quick and so he had begun to rest. Without further ado, he grabbed his phone to see what was on the internet. While inside the booster gear, he talked with his partner about something that worried him. Issei's subconscious. "Greg, can I ask you something?" said the brown-haired boy somewhat doubtfully. "What's wrong, buddy?" the dragon asked in a curious tone as he watched Issei create a chair in his mental space. "I know that I am strong enough to defeat a high-class devil with just a balance breaker, and I know perfectly well that Cardinal Crimson and Triana left with the red-haired girl's pieces, which symbolizes that I only have the BXB. Is there any way to master the Juggernaut drive completely without my vitality or magic being consumed?" said the brown-haired man, thinking of some way to carry out that madness. The red dragon had remained silent, thinking of some way to do it, since the brown-haired boy was right, those promotions had gone with the Gremory pieces and there was only the BXB. And the Juggernaut drive was a somewhat risky option, since possibly the ancient Sekir'Uate could consume him to be one of them, since the curse was still present, despite the fact that it had been greatly reduced, or that before it reaches that point, its vitality would be completely consumed, killing him. "I don't know, partner, why it is necessary to sacrifice something for the Juggernaut drive to remain active. The white to activate it sacrifices his magic, and that is why he can keep it active, despite the fact that there is another factor, and that would be the curse of the ancient Sekir'Uates, since because of them the control of it is lost despite being somewhat reduced," answered Drake in a serious tone, leaving Issei in the same way who having that information. "Think of any idea that occurs to you," Drake said Issei in the same thoughtful tone. "I don't know, buddy, the only thing I can think of are two things, that you wake up each one of them to then solve their problems and change them with your will, or the other would be that you will finish off each one of them in cold blood," said Drake in a serious tone, something that surprised the brown-haired boy, but he thought things through better. He only had those two options left, or could there be more? He put those thoughts aside and then said, "Well, we'll think about that later, okay? Okay, well that would be part of the curse. Now about the sacrifice when activating the Juggernaut drive," Issei said, leaving the dragon in doubt. What are you thinking about, buddy? Drake asked in an expectant tone. Well. Sighs Drake, I want to ask you something, do dragons live longer than demons in a certain way? Issei asked in a calm but nervous tone at the same time. That's right, mate, we have the same longevity, but we get to live a little longer, but why do you ask? Drake questioned. Well, I was thinking, if I give you my whole being, I suppose I would become a dragon, right? Said Issei while he confirmed part of it to the dragon. Well, I was thinking, if I became a dragon, I would have more life, right? Well, when activating the Juggernaut drive I sacrificed that longevity, said Issei worriedly to the drake. But buddy, the Juggernaut drive quickly consumes your vitality, said the Crimson Dragon, reminding Issei of that fact. I know, partner, but isn't there any way for the time that the Juggernaut drive takes to synchronize with the time that it takes from my life? Minutes with minutes and hours with hours, said Issei in a thoughtful tone, but hopeful to know if he could do what I have been thinking about for a couple of days. Drake, upon hearing that idea, began to think about that possibility, something that little by little was convincing him, but he knew that it was very risky, since it required a great capacity in all the fields that it entailed, something that he told the brown-haired boy without hesitation. Partner, to do that you will need a great magical capacity, great resistance and great strength. If you become a dragon, are you sure you want to do this? Said Drake, confirming in a certain way the brown-haired boy's assumptions, which made the brown-haired boy smile slightly. So it is possible, huh? Issei said in a flirtatious tone, while unconsciously a manic smile appeared on his face. Indeed, mate. Well, it's decided, we have to do it. Issei said in a determined tone, something that made the dragon proud, but that pride quickly went down the drain with the brown-haired boy's next words, but first I'm going to focus on my music for a while. But mate, according to you there is no. I know there is no tomorrow, but I am already strong enough to beat Volley, I will not neglect my training. But I also want to focus on my music, said Issei, in a tone that was not very calm, almost annoying. Sighs, it's okay buddy. Thanks Drake, well according to my calculations the club time is almost over, I have to go soon, friend. Issei said goodbye to his partner, well he said goodbye in the same way while in his mind he said to himself. Issei Hyodo, I know you will achieve great things and bring out the title of Sekirute. In the real world. We can see how Issei had already stood up from his place and turned off his music. A few moments ago when he came to, he had turned off his phone and had gotten up since the club hour was about to end. A couple of minutes later Issei was already standing next to his motorcycle watching as the students who had stayed in their clubs were also leaving, but he had noticed that some of those who were leaving were looking at him out of the corner of their eyes, which made him a little strange, but he didn't give it any importance. He supposed that they saw him a lot for bringing his motorcycle, but the truth was different. About to leave that place, a certain perverted chestnut had approached him for no apparent reason, which confused Issei who remained expectant of what the girl in front of him would say or do. Hello Hyodo-kun, the girl received. Hello Ika, Issei replied. Phew, but what a nice bike, is it yours? Asks Ika in a curious tone. That's right, why the question? Issei stated and then questioned the brunette. Not for nothing, but well, leaving that aside, how about the occult club? Ika questioned only to reconfirm that Issei had left that club. Huh? He gets excited. Well. I'm not in that club anymore, I left on my own, said Issei, surprising the girl. Wow, the perverted beast left the popular club on his own? Ika said with irony. That's right, but why do you ask me? As I said before, it's just curiosity, but if you're not in that club anymore, why are you leaving here late? The brunette continued to question since she wanted him to say with her own words that he was in the music club so that his viewers who were watching the new live performance of the brunette would know about her. Why is that so? Ika, before approaching Issei, started a new live broadcast so that the live broadcast would be even more successful than the previous ones that had already been held, and for that reason, she had approached a brown-haired boy again just on the second day of his surveillance of her. Our doorman had stayed, but that hadn't lasted long since after a few seconds he spoke. Well, I opened my own club, Issei said in a nervous tone. Okay, wow, so Issei Hyodo opened his own club and it's about perversions or something like that. Ika said in a mischievous tone while little by little she had gotten closer to Issei a little more than she already was. That? Of course not, I've already stopped doing that. To be honest, I'd like to apologize to the girls I'd spied on in the past, but I don't think they'll forgive me. But well, I went way off topic. My club isn't about perversions, it's about music. With those words he had surprised everyone who was watching that live show. In the brown-haired boy's voice, the regret he felt for his past actions had been noticed, and that intention had made them reach the girls who were once victims of the looks that the brown-haired boy gave them. The boy's surprised expression changed to a serious and inquisitive one, since they did not believe those words of the brown-haired boy, despite the fact that he had changed his image of him, and things they still did not believe him. Aika, for her part, was still surprised by the brown-haired boy's words, but she quickly hid that expression to change to the one she usually showed. Ooh, so music, huh? That's time. Well, how about one of these days you invite me to your club so I can sing, said the brunette in a vain and slightly mocking tone to embarrass the brown-haired boy and or get him out of his mind, which she didn't achieve. Instead, she received a positive response, which again left her surprised. Of course Aika, whenever you want to go, let me know, I'll be waiting for you with pleasure, said Issei with a smile, which caused the brunette to blush slightly. Pee boo. Boo. But, what kind of reaction is that? I wasn't supposed to say that you didn't like me, why this positivity? Said Aika, very confused and in shock. Size, look Kiryu, I've already changed, and with that change I realized how much of my actions and behavior of the past were too childish for my age, and I want to correct that. Look, before I entered the Kuo Academy, I was more serious and focused, but thanks to someone telling me about breasts and such I became obsessed with them. Which changed me and I became perverted, but now that I analyze that I feel embarrassed and a little cringe, so that's why I'm going back to how I was before, and I have evidence to back that up. If one day you want to know more, come to my house, and I'll show you things from my past before entering the academy. But those words Issei continued to leave everyone speechless in general, since only on the second day of Issei's Asian surveillance, some very important things about Issei had been revealed, and they knew that perfectly well. The girls who were in the student council throughout the live broadcast remained like the rest of the viewers. Those revelations had left their way of seeing Issei in doubt and they did not know what to do. On the one hand, they wanted to get to know him better, and on the other, they still didn't trust him enough to talk to them, so they would wait a while to see how things would go. But that same thought were all of Sona's entourage except for herself and her queen Tsubaki, since if they thought about it, she had not investigated Issei very thoroughly, since she had not been interested in that young man at all, and now that he had supposedly changed, she had become interested in him. The curiosity was beginning to arise in her, and she would not hesitate to find out about him, so with a silent call, her queen was indicating to her that she would remind her that they would investigate the brown-haired boy more thoroughly than they had investigated. The black-haired girl had only agreed and then continued with her activities while continuing to listen to the live broadcast. In the same way the rest of the Citri nobility did. Aika, for her part of Ella, had remained silent, she did not know what to say, the brown-haired boy's words of Ella had left her speechless. Issei, upon noticing this, just gave a few light laughs at the state he had left the brunette in, and without saying anything and giving her a warm and kind smile, the brunette said to Aika. "Do you want Aika to take you?" She, for her part of her, came out of her stupor looking directly at our protagonist, leaving her in the clouds, since upon seeing him a great blush covered her, and her heart began to beat rapidly. This moment, in the eyes of the spectators, seemed like something from a romantic anime, which made all the girls watching it sigh, while the boys, seeing the brown-haired boy's attitude, didn't know what to say or think. But returning to Aika, as her heart rate calmed down a bit, she had a totally different attitude than she normally showed. She accepted Ella's brown-haired boy's gesture. He calmly got on the brown-haired boy's motorcycle. Once he was up there, Issei gave his helmet to Aika, which she gladly accepted, taking off her glasses to put on the helmet and put them away in their corresponding ear at the same time that the motorcycle was turned on. "Hold on," Aika said Issei as he got ready to leave, while the motorcycle slowly moved forward so that he could quickly leave the academy. Aika unconsciously approaches the brunette's back of her, pressing her breasts against it, her arms passed through her abdomen and then tightened her grip of her, placing her head on Issei's shoulder. The brown-haired boy had N''T said anything and was only focusing on the path to Kiryu's house, which he remembered where it was since at some point in her life she had gone there for some business between him and her. The girl enjoyed the feeling, she had N''T felt like this for a long time, that feeling in her chest was warm and she said to herself. Is this really what he's making me feel? Is the feeling of being by his side so warm? Is Hyodo so magical that in just a few minutes he gave me that crush? Is what I'm feeling admiration or nascent love? The brunette was asking herself 1,001 questions, so much so that she had not noticed that the brown-haired boy was approaching her house. The change in speed took Aika out of her world, realizing that she was about to arrive at her house. Finally reaching the door of her box, she slowly got off the bike until she finally got off and then took off her helmet and handed it to Issei, who received it in his hands so that he could then take off his glasses, put on the helmet and put his glasses back on. The girl had put hers on in the same way. There was a deathly silence in the place until it was finally broken by Aika, who said to the chestnut tree. "Thank you for bringing me home, Issei. No problem, whenever you want I'll drop you off and go to my club to sing, whenever you want I'll be there, okay? Okay, bye until tomorrow. See you tomorrow." The brown-haired boy was about to leave, but before doing so he had been stopped by Aika, and then she gave Issei a hug, who had not expected that action, but he still reciprocated the hug. Something that made Ika happy, who after the hug saw how the brown-haired boy left that place. Ika took out her phone since he was still alive, and she was still surprised by the amount that she was still watching the live broadcast. The last thing the viewers saw was how Ika had a big smile along with a big blush, and with a peace sign the brunette's live broadcast ended. Chapter 5. It was a new day in Kuo City. A brown-haired boy got up from his bed with a serious, but at the same time melancholic look, since before falling asleep, he had found something very important that his perverted self had completely forgotten about. Just like every day he carried out his daily routine, but for some strange reason when it came time to do his exercises, he overexerted himself for the simple reason of his mood. When it was time to go to the academy, Issei prepared his motorcycle to leave on it, and before getting on it, he put on some wireless headphones and then took out a different phone than the one he normally uses. When he did a couple of things, he now put on his helmet to leave that place in first gear. On the way to school, the brown-haired boy couldn't stop thinking about what he had completely forgotten, and he reproached himself, mentally saying, "How dare you forget about her? During that stage she was the one who supported you the most. Why did I keep those things if they were so valuable? All my awards and recognitions, also all the music I had recorded." While the brown-haired boy continued to reproach himself, he had not realized that he had already arrived at the academy, and as if his body were on autopilot, he parked his motorcycle and got off it, stopping with his gaze down. Without realizing it, a young brunette with glasses approached him with great enthusiasm. This was Ika, who wanted to surprise the brunette with a scare, something she achieved thanks to the fact that she had approached Issei, and with a great scream, she brought Issei out of his thoughts of her. "Oh no way, Ika," said Issei while breathing heavily. Smiles sideways he, "Did I catch the DJ off guard?" Ika said in a mocking tone. "Don't go too far, Ika, I almost shit myself," Issei continued to complain, while he slowly regained his usual composure. "Oh? The DJ is very pensive today. It must be because yesterday you brought a pretty girl with glasses to his house," Ella said Ika in a vain tone, while a blush ran through her face. "Ella, thanks to the memory of a very kind Issei with her." "No, it's not because of that," Issei said in a sharp tone, which depressed the brunette a little. "It's because of something else that I'll check more about later, but leaving that aside, hello Ika, good morning," Issei said in a somewhat mocking tone at the end, while giving a kind smile. Ika blushed upon seeing that, but so that Issei wouldn't see that effect, the brunette turned away, and with a somewhat embarrassed tone she replied, "Huh. Yeah, hello Haidu. Good morning. Well, thanks for asking. That's great, do you want to go to the classroom together? Classes are about to start." "Huh? Yeah, sure, why not?" But that exchange of words, both brown-haired boys headed towards their living room in full view of everyone around them. Some looked at the brown-haired boy with doubt, while the rest looked at him with affirmation when they saw that he had completely changed. In that place some of the student council had seen the interaction of the brown-haired boy, which upon seeing him, they still could not believe that he had changed, in the same way that interaction had been seen by some girls of the Gremory entourage, which their reactions were of anger and pure hatred towards the brown-haired boy. The start of classes had passed normally until the end. Our protagonist had already finished his student day and was heading to his club in the same way that in the morning, he put on his headphones to listen to music while he looked at his phone a little, looking for what was new on the internet, more specifically on YouTube. After a couple of seconds he had found something that had caught his attention, and that was that on Ika's channel, he had found some videos about which the title was "Watching Haidu." With curiosity, I have opened one of the 4 videos, this being the first part according to the title. When he opened it, he was left speechless because when he saw only the beginning of the video, he realized that they had recorded it without knowing it. The impression had lasted little since it seemed logical to him with the title, and also that the views were quite a few. In the same way this linked it with the new treatment he was receiving from the majority of the institute, but that mattered little to the brown-haired boy since he was starting again as a DJ, so he had taken this calmly, and this served so that his classmates would get to know the old Issei and changed their way of seeing him more than they had already done when he had suddenly changed. Without realizing it, our protagonist had already arrived at his club, and just upon arriving Issei was going to sit at his audio and sound equipment where he began to create a new song that he had planned for a long time. At the same time that Ika was working, she would sneak in to start a live show where she would start talking about things like her presentation of her and some other phrases that occurred to her. Moments before, in the student council, the members of the Citri group except for Saji were doing their daily paperwork. Everything seemed normal until a magic circle appeared in front of Sona. From it appeared a folder with a drawing of a face sticking out the tongue of a certain Mao Leviathan. This had slightly embarrassed the Era Citri, but she internally thanked her sister for having carried out her task to Ella de Ella. That fact had caught the attention of all those present, paying attention to their de Ella King de Ella. While Sona left her work for a moment to look at the document carefully, after reading a little, the girl's gaze widened greatly while I continued reading very quickly. After quickly reading the pages inside the document, all that could be seen was an indescribable face on Sona, which left everyone present confused. During that period of time, the room had become completely silent, but after a few seconds, that silence was cut by a scream from Sona. Eee. That action had taken everyone by surprise, as they saw how the king had been completely stunned. Tsubaki curiously grabbed the file from the king's hands and began to read it out loud. As Tsubaki was reading to her Ella King Ella, everyone was completely shocked and stupefied to hear what the brown-haired boy was like before. The place had fallen into a deep silence again, there was not a single word to say. That information had taken everyone by surprise, and they no longer knew what to think about the chestnut. While that was happening, a phone ringing loudly, this phone belonged to Tomo who, just by hearing the notification tone, knew perfectly well that it had arrived. Without saying anything and very quickly, she took her phone to press the notification and was taken to a video live belonging to Aika who was just beginning to speak. Everyone, upon hearing that sound, paid attention to the live broadcast, even Sona, who was still with her very disordered thoughts, thanks to the chestnut that was being recorded. Got back with Issei. He had prepared his audio equipment ready to record the sounds he would use for his song to Ella. He had already noticed Aika's presence of her, but he would still continue no matter what to Ella, thus beginning his creation process of him. After a long time recording some instruments and one or another rhythm, Issei finished a large part of his song. He only needed one last detail, this being a sung part. Issei was preparing his recording booth where he would sing the part he was missing. With just pressing a button inside the booth the music began to play. Those who were watching the live broadcast had not heard anything. The last thing they saw was how Issei had entered that place and was staggering from one side to the other. The silence was uncomfortable for them as doubt ate away at them. What masterpiece the chestnut had now created, for all or almost all of them the songs they had heard from the chestnut had pleased them, the talent of the chestnut was one of the best in their point of view. After a while the brown-haired boy left his cabin and went to his PC, where he would start editing the song again. While he was doing that activity, surprising the spectators and Aika herself by saying, "Hiryu-san, if you're going to record me doing my activities in my club, do it from the front, it's a little uncomfortable to think that hundreds of people are watching me work." Aika, with a shocked and sad face, came out from where she was hiding, behind the window, and luckily for her, it was only half closed, allowing her to get inside the music club. Laughs nervously. "Since when do you know it was there?" Aika nervously said. "Since you started recording me, although I don't mind at all, it is a little uncomfortable," Issei said while continuing with his work. "Huh? It doesn't bother you at all? So can I keep recording?" the girl asked as she sat down on an armchair that was conveniently located in that spot. "Of course, if you want a drink you can grab it from there," points your finger to a mini fridge, "and if you want to explore a little for me, no problem, I'm about to finish," said Issei, while continuing with his work. Aika, having the green light, without hesitation, began to record the entire place, showing each device and instrument that Issei had. During the recording, she narrated what she saw as if she were an experienced journalist, making the viewers of her live show impressed with everything they saw. Even the girls of the Citri clan had been waiting expectantly for what was happening in the video, forgetting a little about what they had discovered about the brown-haired boy. The live broadcast continued like this for a while until Aika had finished showing everything and was going to sit back down on the couch where she had previously been waiting for Issei to finish. For a few minutes the place was silent until the brunette finally spoke. "Well, I'm done, ugh, it took me longer than I thought," said Issei in a somewhat tired tone. "Oh, that's good, Haidu-kun," said Aika in a mischievous tone. "If so, do you want to listen to the song?" Issei asked as he got up from his seat and began to connect some things. "Is it possible?" Aika asked. "Of course, it's no problem for me," told Issei as I have finished connecting some cables. "Okay, if you don't have any problems with it being broadcast live, we'll be happy to listen to it, viewers or not," said Aika to the camera while smiling happily. The comment box of that live had completely exploded to the point that the comments were starting to get stuck due to the positive responses to the idea of listening to the chestnut song. Aika just gave a sign that she would start at whatever time she wanted, which the brown-haired boy agreed to, and went to sit at her desk where he started playing the song. Name: Battle for Eternity by Everin Maxwell. The spectators had been pleased with that song, their expectations had fallen short of what they had expected, the part where Issei sang had been liked too much by the students of the Kuo Academy. On the other hand, the girls of the Citri clan had not expected anything less, they had already heard a little about the brown-haired boy's songs, and they had liked them, although after that the Citrus began to talk to each other to reflect on the brown-haired boy and what they would think about him from now on, plus Sona, who upon reading that document, had a thought that had remained in her mind. He could be a candidate. That had been on their part, with Aika she had been enthralled with the song to the point of wanting to listen to it again. The brown-haired boy felt proud of his work as he would always have done. After listening to that song, Issei began to disconnect the cables from the audio equipment and then began to put away some things from his club while Laika watched him while recording. Well, now what do we do? She asked the brunette with glasses. Normally I would listen to the song I created many times while I look at some things on the internet, more news about electronic music, dubstep or funk. Issei answered as he had already finished saving everything and then went to sit next to Aika. Okay, your song turned out great, how did you sing it? Did you use auto-tune? Aika said, being sincere and a little curious, which caught Issei's attention from her. Use auto-tune? Well, about that I don't use auto-tune much, at most I use it for some songs that I make like my voice, and that's just to amplify some parts or put a little distortion on it, Issei said a little thoughtfully, while Aika paid attention to him. Really? You do the singing parts with your own voice? The brunette questioned in a curious tone. That's right, the brown-haired boy affirmed. I'm not a big fan of auto-tune, and that's why I control my vocal cords by pressing some specific points so that it comes out different, said Issei, leaving the spectators and Aika herself impressed. And they did it more when Issei showed that talent, alternating a little in some tones. Incredible, I didn't know you were so good, and since when did you start being a DJ singer? You continue to question Aika with a somewhat expectant tone. But Issei, hearing that tone, had to stop Aika to say, hey, put the eggs in your cake, if you want to interview me or something like that, let's come to an agreement, okay? Those words had surprised the brunette at first, but internally she cursed herself for not succeeding in her move to get some information out of the brunette, but when he said that he would agree to be interviewed, she was equally happy internally. Huh? Yeah, sure, I'd like to interview you, then we'll come to an agreement. For now, we have to go, club time is over, said the girl, feeling confused. Okay. After that exchange of words between Issei and Aika, the brown-haired boy began to put away his things, while the brown-haired girl headed towards the window through which she had entered, leaning a little out of the window to reach her bag, while in the process her rear end was exposed in all its splendor, all in full view of the brown-haired boy who, upon seeing Aika out of the corner of his eye, had blushed at the sight of Aika's rear. He quickly shook his head to quickly ask, do you want me to take you home? At the same time he asked that question, the brown-haired Aika straightened her posture to turn to look at the brown-haired and answer. Of course. After that, Issei and Aika left the music club, going to the parking lot of the place where the brown-haired boy's motorcycle was lying there. When he was close to the motorcycle, the brown-haired boy got on first, then helped the brown-haired girl get on and gave her his helmet. Issei started the bike to start it slowly, since he had gained momentum he headed to the exit of the academy. As he reached the exit some students said goodbye to him, and others congratulated him. The protagonist returned these same students with a big smile. The journey didn't last long and he was on the verge of the exit, but he had to stop a little because the students kept leaving and he didn't want any accidents to happen. While being detained, the brown-haired boy had not realized that certain girls were staring at him with anger, confusion and contempt. This group of girls were members of the occult club who saw how their ex-lover was riding a very beautiful motorcycle, and to top it off, a girl was his co-pilot. Something inside them was upsetting them, but they didn't know what it was, so they better leave that place towards their new home with their loved ones. Before the brown-haired boy started his jacket to leave, he saw how the girls he once loved passed by him with a look of disinterest directed towards him. Seeing that it didn't matter to him, since he didn't feel anything for those girls, so he left that place with Aika in the same way, taking the opposite direction to the girls' course. Meanwhile, back with the student council. All the members of the Citri group were packing their things ready to leave that place, a few seconds after everything was ready and they left. A certain blonde man arrived at the place very agitated, breathing heavily. Sorry President Sona, I had some business to attend to, said Saji. What time is it to arrive, Saji? We are about to leave and you have just shown up, this is unacceptable, you know it, said Sona with her characteristic coldness. Yes, I know and I'm sorry President Sona, as I told you, I had some matters that prevented me from arriving early. You know perfectly well that you have responsibilities here, Saji. I have put up with you every time you have arrived late, but now you will be punished with 10,000 lashes. Sona sentenced while in one of her hands she made a magic circle appear with the characteristic emblem of her clan Ella, which made the blonde turn pale as he swallowed a little saliva and stretched the collar of her shirt. A serious mistake, since in full view of all the girls of the student council, some kisses with lipstick and hickeys laid on the boy's neck, which left them surprised and shocked. Quickly 2 women from the Citri clan came out of that impact, being as always Sona and Tsubaki. The first to speak was the violet-eyed one, who began with a serious and cold tone. Saji Genshiru, could you explain to me why you have lipstick and hickeys on your neck? Hey? Chapter 6. Through the streets of Kuo. A motorcycle was prowling the streets of this remote town. After a couple of minutes the motorcycle stopped in front of a certain perverted brunette's house. The said chestnut got out of the vehicle with a big smile of joy while taking off his helmet and giving it to our protagonist who, upon receiving the helmet, put it on. "Thank you very much Haidu-kun," said the brunette with the aforementioned smile. "You're welcome Kiryu-san, you know that if you want me to take you I'll gladly do it," answered the brown-haired boy as he prepared to leave. "Of course," Aika exclaimed as she approached the brown-haired boy and gave him a kiss on the cheek of the helmet. "I will take that offer very often," the girl finished saying with a somewhat flirtatious tone, which gave the brown-haired boy a slight chill. "That's a little excited This one, of course, until tomorrow Aika. See you tomorrow." In that slight farewell Issei had not realized the way he had called Aika, and in the same way she had not noticed how he had called her, since she was very immersed in her world. After Issei left that place towards her house, Ella and Aika went into hers, both with different mixed feelings and somewhat confused. In another more specific place in the student council room of Kuo Academy, something very shocking had happened between the members of said committee. Disappointment and anger. These were the feelings of some of the girls of the Citri clan towards a certain blonde boy who had his gaze directed towards the ground, not wanting to look at his mistress's face. Two of the girls present there were shedding silent tears. Emotional pain had been caused to them by that boy after explaining the reason why he had those hickeys on his neck. At the same time, the ever-respectful Sona Citri analyzed the situation and connected some points that he had been eating away at her for a long time. So that's why Haidu-kun was expelled from the Gremory clan, huh? Sona thought out loud, alarming Saji a little. It makes perfect sense, he opens a club by himself, the supposed situation he had with his own clan, and his notable estrangement from them, but to think that you were involved in this is problematic. Can you repeat to me when you started your relationship with those two? Sona said in a serious tone. 3 months and a week ago, Kaichu Saji replied fearfully. So you've been here for a while, huh? I can't control your life Saji, but what you did is something worrying and could lead to serious consequences in the future, said Sona in a thoughtful tone while looking at the ceiling. I'm sorry Kaichu, if there are any problems I will take responsibility, said Saji in a regretful tone. As I said, we can't control your life and your decisions, that's your business, but if they affect me, you'll have to deal with me Genshiro Saji, and you'll pay dearly. You can go now and tell Riaz that I want to talk to her to Ella, said Sona in a cold tone, staring with her to Ella iconic expressionless face her. Causing Saji to freak out and just nod and then quickly leave the place with labored breathing, in full view of everyone present who continued to look at him with an inquisitive face, except for those mentioned above who continued to cry silently. The place had been left with an atmosphere of the afterlife, the silence was sepulchral, and no one said anything until that moment, since the silence had been broken by Momo and Haruko, since they suddenly left the place in tears. The look of Tomo, Ria and Tsubasa changed drastically to one of sadness. Since they knew of their companion's feelings for Saji and knowing that out of nowhere Saji was in a relationship with Irina Shido and Asia Argento, that affected them a lot. With the place in silence, the three girls left the place without any kind of emotion, only sadness for their two friends. They left the place, but not before saying goodbye to their king and their companion Tsubaki. Leaving both girls alone in the council room. Once they were alone, Tsubaki began to speak in a serious tone. Kaichu. What is Tsubaki like? And now, what are you going to do? For now nothing, first I have to find out about the situation between Haidu-kun and the girls, that's why I want to talk to Riaz. I don't know exactly if it can affect us or not, since Saji got involved with one of the I do know how to call them, girls from his harem. So to speak, what we know so far is that Haidu-kun is not in Ria's entourage, it's probably because of Saji or some other reason. I don't know if there can be conflicts between our clans thanks to that, although a great disinterest on Haidu-kun's part can be noticed. Another thing, Haidu is no longer affiliated with any faction. Will he continue to be the pill? Or not anymore? We don't know, but there's nothing to worry about since he helped us without asking for anything in return. This also affects the demons of our race. The Sekiryuite is no longer in the possession of the demons, and since it is no longer there, they would seek to acquire it again by linking it to another retinue or some other method such as marriage, and they would investigate the reason why he left first, directly linking it to Saji if that's why, since he's dating Argento-san and Shido-san, and it could get us into trouble between our clans. Sona said in a monotonous tone, not knowing that Tsubaki had been impressed by her master's words. Could all this happen because of Genshiro? Tsubaki questioned in a shocked tone. They are only possibilities seen from a single point, but as I said, I need even more information to reach a final point, said Sona as she began to walk. So we just have to wait to know more information and what can happen in the future, Tsubaki commented in a thoughtful tone. Indeed Tsubaki, for now we have to continue with our lives, and we also have to go now, it's too late, said Sona in a simple tone waiting outside the council room for her friend Ella Queen. Understood, Sona-sama, Tsubaki replied, and then began to walk towards the exit of the passageway, closing the door, leaving the place alone, only illuminated by the light of the bright moon. Back with Issei. Our protagonist was already at home sitting at a computer working on something very important to him, something that he had to do with his past, something that he had left very abandoned. Damn it, what was the bucking password for this damn account? The brown-haired boy cursed out loud as he continued to write down some passwords that he remembered. It was like this for a while until he finally got it. After so much time sitting in front of the computer, it had been worth it, and so if he had found an ancient relic, Issei entered that account with nostalgia and delicacy. The feelings wanted to come out, but Issei prevented it. This account that she had created with love and appreciation had finally returned to her, this account with which her life as a musical artist had started more than a year and a half ago, but that she had left for the study and another worldly reason, this account with which her alter ego Renevant had been born. After logging into his Gmail, the brown-haired boy quickly went to YouTube where he quickly changed accounts, putting the email account he had entered a few seconds ago as Renevant DJ. You could read in the name of the channel which was being verified. Nostalgia quickly came back. Just watching the last music video he uploaded had been an indescribable feeling, his last song uploaded before leaving for school, and that stupid wish. After Dark, a song uploaded more than a year and a half ago, dedicated to his parents of him, narrating the love story of the two of them, seeing their old logo of him, also filled him with an indescribable feeling, a wave of memories came to his mind. After a couple of minutes Issei calmed down from that feeling, he breathed slowly to relax even more and take his mind off of it, achieving his goal. The place fell silent, you could only see Issei staring at his monitor, intently thinking about several things, one of these being to return to being him again. Doubts ate away at him, and he didn't know what to do. As he was thinking a lot about the pros and cons of summarizing his artistic career, he had realized that Drake's emerald-colored gem had manifested in his left hand, and then the voice of the Welsh dragon began to be heard. "Wow dude, I didn't know you were someone famous," said the dragon, somewhat surprised. "I once was, or maybe I still am, I don't know, this was one of my greatest achievements, and I left it in oblivion because of a stupid idea," Issei said in a melancholic way. "Renevant is a good name, actually, it seems that you were very loved and recognized," said Drake in a slightly interested tone as he saw through the gem, the thousands of views that each song had. "The truth is, yes," laughs a little, "every time I went to a concert in another country people shouted my name at the top of their lungs, those were good times," said Issei in a melancholic tone. "I can imagine, mate, but how did you end up leaving this?" Drake questioned in a curious tone. "It's a long story that you can see in my memories if you want, for now I want to finish arranging some things in my mind," said Issei, getting up from his desk, leaving that room, while Drake said goodbye to his partner. Issei left the room that had once belonged to Irina, although she rarely used it herself. In that room she had installed some things, mostly for work and editing. At a slow pace and remembering some events from the past as Renevant, Issei headed to her room where he was going to arrange the things he had pending. Upon entering the room you could see a variety of awards and recognitions, including chess, music, gold records, mathematics, sciences among others. Issei began to arrange some things that he was still missing, among them something that filled him with nostalgia, something that had been very meaningful to him, and that was his iconic suit with which he was easily recognized, so special was the suit for him. Simple fact that his mother had made it for him. With total delicacy Issei placed the suit on a mannequin that he had summoned with magic. Every time he placed some part of the garment more memories came back, his first concert, his first photo with a fan, the time he once shared with two friends he loved very much like brothers, and the time he was with his first love, until he finally finished placing the entire suit. A sad and melancholic smile formed on his face, and a thought came to his mind. Do I go back to being Renevant again? That question was beginning to eat away at him, and another one came with his self-questioning, do I go back to being myself from a couple of years ago? Without a doubt he was doing it little by little, what he had begun to do, his sudden change in appearance, his very noticeable increase in notes and his return to music. Now that he thought about it, the music club could be like his DJ days, he could create a new song in one day without even wanting to, his old skill for audio editing had returned in the blink of an eye, as if he had never left it. In addition, the music club did not affect his training or anything like that at all, he had already set schedules which had been very efficient and very well achieved. This and more things came to the chestnut's head, in such a short time he had already reached a conclusion very quickly, something very typical of his old self. It's time to go back. The boy thought that since it was already very late he was going to lie down in his bed, his eyes slowly began to close just by touching the pillow. Sleep had already quickly flooded him, falling into the arms of Morpheus. Elsewhere. In a mansion on the outskirts of Kuo, a large group of boys and girls were having dinner in the dining room. Some were talking among themselves, and others were concentrating on eating that exquisite dish made by the women of that place, but a certain blonde was very thoughtful, since what her mistress had said had left him like that. That had been noticed by a certain orange-haired girl who, without tact, began to question her beloved blonde Ella. "What's wrong, darling? Is something wrong?" Comes out of his thoughts, huh? "No, of course not, Irina, it's just that since I've neglected my council activities a lot, so Nikaichu scolded me," told Saji with some sadness. Asia, hearing that, with a tone of slight anger, she began to reproach, "How dare you scold my cute Saji-kun? It's normal, I belong to her," said Saji with a lost look for a few moments, but he returned to normal and quickly changed the subject. "And by the way, Ria-san, Kaichu wants to talk to you." The rest of the group, who had not been paying attention to the mini-conversation of the trio of lovers, began to pay attention upon hearing the name of the redeed. Raises Issei. "So, Sona, do you want to talk to me?" "Okay, I'll visit her next week," the redeed responded, leaving the blonde a little upset. "How? It's going to go just like that," Saji said in a worried tone. "That's right, is there a problem?" "This will be the same as the time I went with my parents to talk about my new fiancé," said Riaz without importance and in a calm noble tone, while looking with a warm smile at her dear silver-haired boy. "Well, if you say so," said Saji with a doubtful tone as he remembered that time when Riaz talked to her parents. Flashback. The blonde was walking through a large hallway in the Gremory mansion surrounded by the entire group, surprisingly including Vali, who was supposed to be a fugitive for betraying the alliance. On either side of him were Irina and Asia, very close to him. Nerves consumed him but he would not give in. The hallway seemed long and a lump in his throat began to form, but all that vanished when he reached the main hall. Where Riaz Venelana Bale Gremory's mother was drinking some tea while reading a book and the red-haired girl's father was drinking coffee while also reading a book. Without saying a word, Riaz, Vali and Akeno sat in front of their parents while the rest stood waiting for what was about to happen. With slow movement the heads of both patriarchs rose to see their visitors. At first they could be seen with a calm expression, but when they saw the silver-haired man they became alarmed and were going to call their guards to stop him. But before that happened, Riaz stopped them with some words that were too calm for Rubio's taste. "Stop, mother and father, don't call anyone first, let me explain," said the redeed in a calm tone, like a noble carefree. Ella closes her gaze on Ella. "Daughter, what the hell are you talking about? Next to you is a traitor of the alliance, it is essential to catch him too." "Where is Issei-kun?" said Venelana in a serious tone while she looked at everyone present, seeing that the aforementioned one was not there. "First of all, don't say that name again, secondly, the traitor at my side, according to you, is now my boyfriend and fiancé," said Riaz in a carefree tone, which made the patriarch's eyes open wide. "Huh?" Zudicus exclaimed, "Weren't you supposed to want to get engaged, Issei? What is this about, daughter?" The Gremory patriarch shouted at the top of his lungs. "It's not about anything, father, I just stopped loving him and my feelings changed to another person, there's nothing wrong with it," the redeed claimed in a serious tone. "And that person had to be a traitor of the alliance and also a natural enemy of its pawn." "Riaz, what are you thinking? What does he have that he doesn't have?" Issei-kun, said Venelana with noticeable anger. "Vali-kun is much better than Issei in some aspects, besides it is a matter that does not concern you, I just came to tell you about my new relationship," said Riaz with the same tone. The patriarchs, upon hearing this comment, just remained silent and stared at their daughter, angry and disappointed faces could be seen on their faces. After that a long discussion had begun to take place, among the topics that had been touched on were about the girl's new interests. In short, parents and daughter had been left on bad terms, something that had unconsciously affected both parents. For the moment they would not do anything about it, they would only start to act after talking to the brown-haired boy. End of the flashback. That is not a flashback since it was not a POV. The last thing the blonde remembered was that after that talk in quotes, the night had been a very crazy one for everyone, since after that they had gone to the Haidu residence where they still lived. From there the girls prepared dinner, which was a delicious udon that, in Gremory style, the girls had made completely naked, thus provoking the boys, ending in a night of unbridled hex, where the dessert was the girls' bodies. But leaving that aside, everyone present had finished eating, and each one was going to their bedroom with their respective partner. Leaving the place alone, or that was what they thought, since in the room of the place 4 people were there somewhat frustrated with their leader. These were Leffe Pendragon, Arthur Pendragon, Biku and Kuroka, who were sitting without doing anything, totally bored, waiting for the night to fall, and for tiredness to make them sleep. It was already a new day, and in one of the houses in Kuo, a certain Citri girl got up early like every day to do her same routine as always. Getting up, having breakfast, getting ready and going to the academy, the journey seemed monotonous to him, although during this short journey, he could listen to a little music, especially his favorite one which he repeated many times. No matter how much she listens to it, she never gets tired of it, besides being a very special song, since the lyrics had been written by her, but performed by a great musical artist. The title of the song was proposed by her, Bloody Mary. But this topic would be for another time. The point is that Sona Sitri and her queen had arrived at their destination, where they would begin the usual preparations for the entrance of the students. The whole beginning of his day had been normal, until a certain brown-haired boy arrived, drawing attention as always, arriving again in his red truck, just like the other time, he had some things in the back of him. But she had N''T given it any importance and continued with her normal day. Everything was going well until club time. Obviously she would be in the student council with all her entourage carrying out their activities. But again Saji had not arrived, which had made her a little angry, and she would later retaliate for that. Now she would focus on doing her job as president of the council. After some time Tsubasa put his phone back on to watch the live broadcast that Aika had started. Notifying this, Sona paid a little attention to the audio of that live broadcast to see what was going to happen now today. In the live, we can see how Aika began recording Issei's van, which was unloading some things from it, all while narrating a little about it for a couple of minutes. The spectators were just waiting for something interesting to happen. To be honest, everyone had already totally changed their image of our protagonist. Some already saw him with interest, and others saw him normally. Besides, his talent with music was very good. After the long time of waiting, something interesting was finally happening. Since the chestnut had installed some instruments, he had brought among them some guitars, a drum set and another keyboard. After that Issei went to a chair to sit down. Having a guitar next to him, he waited for Aika to focus on him with the camera. When she was already there, our protagonist grabbed the guitar and prepared to play it, something that seemed interesting to the girl, and he began to talk again. "Oh, hi Ryu-kun, can you tell us what you're going to do?" "With pleasure Kiryu, well I'm about to ruin one of my recent songs that I had made," explained the brown-haired boy while he searched for the song on a laptop that he still had next to him. "Okay. And what would that be, or how are you going to ruin it?" Aika said, confused. "Well, I don't know if you remember, this song plays a part of Sea of Problems." "Oh, so that song is very good, by the way. What is it called, or what did you call it?" asked Aika. "Well, I called it Sea of Problems," Issei replied. "Well, name, I guess, well, but continuing with the subject, how are you going to ruin it, or what are you going to do to ruin it according to you?" said the brunette somewhat expectantly. "Well, I'll do it this way." While Issei was saying that, the brown-haired boy was preparing to play while with one hand, he pressed a button on the laptop's keyboard, starting the playback of the song. All the spectators had been impressed again every time the brown-haired boy surprised them with some new talent out of nowhere. Aika had been left speechless. She didn't say anything, or said everything. Pure impression was what she felt at that moment. While in the student council, all those present had been like Aika. That way of playing the guitar had left them impressed, especially the final part of the melody. But let's focus on Sona, who was coming out of her impression of her first of her. Several thoughts about the chestnut were settling in those moments. She already knew some facts about what had been very confusing for her the last few days, but she will soon discover very well what the brown-haired boy has been through. For now she would focus on her work. The rest of her entourage continued watching Aika's live broadcast, while Sona would be checking the papers she has on the table. After a couple of minutes of checking these, a letter was found on her table from the school director. With great curiosity he grabbed the letter to start reading it. As he read it, his expression on his face changed little by little. The content of it was leaving her on the edge of the cliff, thanks to a certain blonde. The problems for her Della and her Della entourage Della were coming. And there were still more to come. Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.